In every parallel universe, there exists an exact copy of you. In one, you died yesterday. In another, you'll live another 1,000 years. And here's what's truly frightening. Your consciousness will always remain in the reality where you're alive, because it simply has no other choice. This isn't the script for a Hollywood thriller. It's a consequence of quantum mechanics, a theory that has no single proof, but is impossible to dismiss. Have you ever woken up thinking, I could have died today? You left home a minute late and the train you were missing crashed. The average person would say, lucky. A physicist familiar with the many worlds interpretation would ask, how many times have you not survived? The screen splits into two halves. On one, the person is unharmed. On the other, the same scene, but with an accident. According to this logic, every risky moment creates two realities. In one, you're dead. In the other, you're alive and reading this text. You only remember the living branch. That's why you feel like death always passes you by. In 1957, a young physicist named Everett defended a dissertation that shattered everything his colleagues believed. Before him, everyone thought that a quantum particle exists in many states simultaneously, but chooses one at the moment of measurement. This is called wave function collapse. Everett said, there is no collapse, no choice. The particle exists in all states. Each one simply now lives in its own universe. The universe doesn't collapse into a single reality. It constantly branches, every billionth of a second. This is called the many worlds interpretation. The scientific community ignored it. Everett was called a fringe figure. He left physics for military analysis. But his theory didn't die. Let's conduct a thought experiment with Russian roulette. You have a 6-bullet revolver. One bullet is loaded. The classical probability is 1 in 6 that you will die. But the many worlds interpretation says otherwise. The universe splits into 6 versions. In 5, the bullet is in the wrong position. You are alive. In 1, the gun fires. But here's the question. Which branch is your consciousness in? Consciousness is a process in a functioning brain. A dead brain is not aware of itself. Therefore, your I physically cannot be in the branch where you died. It will always be in one of the living branches, even if the probability of life is 1/1,000,000%. You say, but I don't remember these deaths. Of course you don't remember. Memory also belongs to a specific branch. In the universe where you died, your brain was destroyed. It has nothing to remember. And in the branch where you survived, the brain never experienced death. It simply doesn't have the corresponding memories. But sometimes, echoes remain. Some physicists explain the phenomenon of near-death experiences precisely this way: an instantaneous crossing of the boundary between closely related branches. Your consciousness was already on the threshold, but the universe had already split. Now comes the tricky part. If quantum immortality works, what happens when you age? Every heartbeat is a chance of death. The universe continues to branch, but with age, the number of living branches becomes fewer. One branch remains, the one where medicine has prolonged dying, one where consciousness persists, but the body has long since given up. Quantum immortality doesn't promise you eternal youth. It promises you an eternal now, even if that now is agony. But there's another side. Subjectively, for you, death doesn't exist. Think about it. Your I is like a traveler who always opens the door to the room where the light still burns. You will never outlive your own non-existence. Therefore, from the perspective of your consciousness, you seem to live forever. Not in one life, but in a succession of living branches. This is the essence of quantum immortality. Your subjective line of reality ends only when not a single inhabited branch remains. And if quantum physics is infinite, then you will never die. Of course, most scientists don't accept quantum immortality as a serious theory. The main objection: it's not falsifiable. You can't conduct an experiment that would prove you died in another branch, because you're alive here. It's also unclear how probabilities work in the many worlds interpretation. Why do we rarely wake up after being struck by lightning? Because living branches are few? If all branches are real, then why do we feel rarity? This is an open, unanswered question. Everett himself didn't insist on his theory until the end of his life. But he didn't back down either. You know what's most important about this theory? Even if it's wrong, it changes the way you view risk, fear, and every second of life. You don't think, "I'm old and will die soon." You think, "I'm alive in this branch right now." Parallel universes are no excuse for recklessness. When you throw yourself under a car, there might simply be no living branches left. But it's a reminder, every normal day is a miracle of probability. You don't remember how many times the universe killed you to save you. You only remember this: hot coffee, fresh air, someone else's laughter. In one universe, you closed this video after the first minute. In another, you're asleep. In a third, you're now discussing this scenario with friends. And in this one, you're listening to these words. So, in this thread, you're still alive. Or maybe you just think so.